Greetings, friends, and shalom. Thank you for joining us on TorahTruthSeekers.org, or maybe you're catching this video on YouTube somehow. The title of this message today is Mystery Babylon Today. And you might be thinking, Mystery Babylon? I don't have any Mystery Babylon in my theology, in my beliefs. I'm a Christian. Well, please listen either way, because we are warned as believers in Revelation chapter 18 and verse 4. Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive her plagues. And who is this her that we are reading about? Which woman is this? We can read, is this the woman in Revelation chapter 12? The woman that has 12 stars and gives birth to the male child? We understand that as the 12 tribes of Israel. We know that the Messiah was born from Israel. He was a Jew from the tribe of Judah, as prophesied. And so we see this woman, and it becomes a physical Israel and a spiritual Israel that will be protected in the end times as the dragon comes after this woman in the end times. And we have more video teachings on that. But continuing here, we see this woman also being read about, the Babylon, this religion of sins. We read about in Revelation chapter 17 and verse 5. This is a woman who's trying to look like the true woman of Revelation 12, Israel. And for true believers of this, we can read about true believers of this woman in Revelation chapter 14 and verse 12. It says, "And here is the patience of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God, our Creator, our Father, and have the faith of Yeshua, or some of you know him as Jesus as the Greek name. But here we have to have both the commandments of God and the faith of the Messiah. And if you have one without the other, chances are you have Babylon, the mystery Babylon within your belief system, which you need to come out of. As we'll continue to read here, if you'll listen, in chapter 17, there's a woman that tries to pose as Israel, as the woman of Revelation 12. And of course, it's going to be more of a replacement theology. They don't want to be Israel. They want to replace Israel and be better and not be grafted in as Gentiles, becoming Israel, as Paul talks about in Romans chapter 11. But here, this other woman who's posing as the faithful woman in Revelation chapter 17 and in verse 5, we're told, "And on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth." Now, who is this woman? Who founded this Babylon mystery religion? Who's the founder of Babylon? Well, we can find a certain amount in history, but let's go to our scriptures and make sure history matches up with our scriptures. It wasn't Nebuchadnezzar as the founder of Babylon. It started way before him. And we can read in Genesis chapter 10. If you turn back with me in Genesis chapter 10, and in verse 8 it says, "Cush begot Nimrod. He," referring to Nimrod, began to be a mighty one on the earth." And down in verse 10, "And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel." And it's interesting. The Hebrew word is pronounced something like Babel. And we say that in English, Babel. And if you look up the Strong's Concordance, you take out your Strong's Concordance, it's number 894, it's 894. and it simply means confusion, or Babylon, right there in one of the synonyms of Babel, the Tower of Babel. And what was that? And you can read the story if you're not familiar with it in Genesis, beginning set 8 and 9 and 10. In that area, read about how after the flood, we call it Noah's flood, but the worldwide flood, and Noah and his sons and their wives started all over again, the human race growing and populating, and they didn't want to scatter throughout the earth like our Creator told them to, and they wanted to go back to the sins, and they realized there might be another flood as a result, so they start building this tower. They make bricks. They develop mortar and make bricks and put bricks on top of bricks to build this huge tower, trying to build this tower higher and higher. And when you're doing that with bricks, you can't just make a vertical wall very high. You have to stagger it, and it starts going up like a mountain or up to like a pyramid or some kind of a structure upward and staggering. And this is what they were trying to do, and our Creator looked down and said He's going to stop this by confusing the languages, by multiplying the languages. So people woke up one morning, "What are you talking about? What? What are you saying? I can't what?" And so they couldn't get along. They had to scatter throughout the earth the way our Creator intended. And so even in English today, we use the term babbling. If you're just babbling, you're just talking on and on and on without much sense, without much purpose or meaning, and it's just babbling. And so that's where that term comes from. It goes back to Nimrod. He was the mighty hunter, the one that the people looked to because he was so mighty and he was so great physically that people actually began worshiping him and looking to him as their leader. And so we are told that this is Babylon, and we need to come out of Babylon. But how does Babylon come to us today? What forms of it is in our belief systems today? Well, first of all, we look to Nimrod as the founder of Babylon. And Nimrod died, and his wife, Semiramis, she wanted to be worshipped, and then she had an illegitimate son, so she claimed that she was impregnated by the Creator. And so she has her son, and so the people wanted to worship Tammuz and worship her, and she wanted to be worshipped more than the son. And so we have this Trinitarian, the first Trinitarian theology, God system developing thousands of years ago. And in sun worship and believing in sun gods and what they took as objects of nature, and they wanted to worship themselves through nature and worshiping the creation rather than the Creator. And so we have symbols, pagan symbols of fertility. We have nature and animals. They used fish and they used crosses, as you find in Egypt and all the tombs and pyramids, long before Christians ever came along on the scene. And so if you haven't checked out our outside resources page on our website, please do so and listen to the video teaching and watch it on Truth or Tradition by Jim Staley and Passion for Truth Ministries. And it exposes in a lot more detail than I will here with my limited time. He has it already laid out with a great video demonstration and visual aids and historical information that is mind-blowing. It's mind-boggling. It's eye-opening. So please go to that when you have the time. But let's look to some mystery clues that we have in Scripture. We have some clues right in our own Word that give us who this mystery Babylon is today. So let us turn to Revelation. Let's go